Today is the 1 month anniversary since Hannah Kobayashi disappeared near LAX in Los Angeles, California. Where is she now? And will she have a change of heart about disconnecting from the world, from America, and from her family? As Christmas, a time of family, time of peace and goodwill approaches, should she reach out? What has made her run away effectively from her life to begin with? Is there anyone else here that wishes that they were somewhere else so that they can be someone else?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. And my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this analysis, I want us to look a lot closer at the poetry within the artful photography of Hannah's Instagram page. What do we learn from it? I've identified 10 of the most haunting posts. What does that tell us about how this happened and who Hannah is? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Welcome to the many of you who have subscribed. I know this is not technically true crime, but I think part of true crime is finding out identity, is dealing with that aspect. And this is certainly a mystery to some extent in this case. Who is Hannah? What is going on with her? What is really happening in this story? If you're finding my analysis worthwhile, please let me know. Let me know if it's meaningful to you, helpful to you, especially this episode where we're going down a very different route. And you can do so by liking, sharing, leaving a comment, and you can also hit the thanks button. And let's get started. Now, for perspective, right now in America, 2 young people are at the center of separate high-profile investigations. Obviously, the one into Hannah has scaled down in a big way. It's not actually over. There's kind of an investigation going on with her with regard to her ex. Meanwhile, the investigation into Luigi Mangione, that is really scaling up in a big way. Not just what has already happened, but basically investigating the evidence as it stands. But think about this in broad strokes. A 30-year-old photographer and nature's child, Hannah Kobayashi, and then a 26-year-old back pain sufferer and gun enthusiast, Luigi Mangione. Both Hannah and Luigi seem to be fighting the same demons in a sense. How to be someone in a cruel, uncaring world. How to become someone. How to find meaning in a world filled with mindless, often deafening chatter. How to make money, make a living, in spite of one's burdens, whatever they are. And so what is the solution to this? How do we become someone of substance, no matter what our age? And so in that respect, let's look at 10 of Hannah's most poignant posts on Instagram for more clues into who she is and where she might be. Number 1, changing. Look at this post from her 131 weeks ago. Yes, I'm changing. Can't stop it now. When we're stuck in our lives, changes are necessary. Getting out of the rat race may be exactly the sort of change Hannah needed. If we've been working for a long time, it is important to take a break and sharpen the saw. Possibly a disconnection from social media or just less unfettered use of it could have helped her, and perhaps it is helping her. And perhaps that's the sort of change that could have helped her alter ego in this story. Number 2, inward journey. Look at this post. Deep depths rise to the surface, a wave of pure emotions, an ocean within, ready to receive, here and now. Introspection is necessary, especially after long periods of superficial, shallow living. It's a recalibration. We reset our course. We remember who we are and where we want to be. But introspection and analysis after a long period of loneliness or isolation isn't what the doctor ordered. The antidote to loneliness isn't introspection, it's engagement. It's moving back into the world. It's engaging in real time with real life, with real people, and having real experiences. And that can be an uncomfortable process. but it is necessary when we've been alone and introspective for a long time. Number 3, born again. Have a look at this image. She titles it Womb. This image speaks to me of rebirth, of being born again, of patterns and synchronicities, and also of the duality of nature. And I do think there's a level beyond duality that's a higher level, and that is transcendence. How do we transcend our problems? Isn't that what Hannah is trying to do? In our lives, even if we lead happy lives, we should expect to be born again into new adventures over and over again, also into new psychologies quite often. In a changing world, we have to adapt, we have to change, we have to renew ourselves in order to be functional. Otherwise, we become dysfunctional. And how do we do that? Do we do so peacefully through kindness and love, or through violence, aggression, and hatred? And do you notice there are a handful of interactions to this post after Hannah put it up, but many others are ignored. Like this next one, number 4, hurt. Hannah seems to have deep hurt. Would you agree with that? It's hard not to imagine that it's not connected in some way to her father, to her family. It's also hard to imagine that her father didn't feel deep feelings or hurt and regret himself, and perhaps guilt over something. But the hurt extends beyond the patriarch in Hannah's family as well. It can be difficult trusting and connecting with others when one loses the ability to trust one's own family. And look at what she writes. My father taught me that I'm a speck of dust. She also writes, I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. These times are poignant. The winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. And maybe that's what she's trying to do, just stay uplifted, instead of becoming down in some way. Number 5, running away from or to something. And that's a very interesting question in terms of Hannah Kobayashi. Is she running away from something, or is she running towards something? Hannah's story reminds me a lot of Gabby Petito's At Turns. Vincent van Gogh once said, the more you love, the more you suffer. If this is true, does it make sense to make one's world smaller and to love less? And often that is what we do when we've loved someone and it doesn't work out. We need to be quiet and alone with ourselves to heal. We need to reject the advances of people at that time and basically recover ourselves. Is that what Hannah's doing? Number 6, self-pity and self-soothing. And look at this image of the sun breaking through a tree. It's really quite beautiful the way the mists actually create these beams of light. And what does she write? Sometimes I go about in pity for myself, and all the while a great wind carries me across the sky. Those are quite interesting words given what has happened here, that she was actually carried across the sky to Los Angeles. And one wonders how she felt after that. Did she feel sorry for herself, or did she pick herself up? And is she still part of that process? You know, it wouldn't be unnatural if Hannah at turns did feel sorry for herself. Lord knows we live in a world that teaches us we are victims. A lot of social media is about, in a way, reinforcing how horrible the world is, and somehow reminding us that forces far more powerful are out there and in control, and that we are but ashes and dust.
We mortals are but shadows and dust. Shadows and dust, Maximus!
Self-pity is a very dangerous and dysfunctional road, especially if we accept it and begin to indulge in it. And what did the gladiator do? Did he feel sorry for himself? Or did he stand up? Because what does anyone do who feels sorry for themselves? They eventually start to reach out for comfort in desperation. And what is someone lacking in psychological resilience? What does someone with very little self-discipline, very few psychological resources do when they need instant soothing? Well, they tend to turn to the worst but the most obvious comforters, substances, people who are going to be a bad influence. Alcohol and drugs, distraction, and in some cases, though not in Hannah's, social media. And what is the alternative to self-pity? Action, agency, courage. Number 7, your focus determines your reality. Reality isn't real for most people. It's whatever they are focusing on at a particular moment. In a real sense, this is a opportunity of tremendous hope for a lot of people who are struggling with depression. Because if their reality isn't real, if they feel stuck in a particular reality, all they need to change is to change their focus. Let me repeat that. If you feel stuck in a particular reality, all you need to change your situation is to change your focus. Well, in theory, but is it really so simple?
If it's so simple, why haven't you done it already?
Real change, point number 1, the thing that gets this whole shebang rolling in the first place. And if you think about it, people have said that Hannah did seem to change. What she was doing was out of character. Well, in order for real change to happen, it has to be predicated on real action, not just a change in perspective. A change in perspective is just the first step. You've got to back it up, not only with action, but with consistent action. Do you want my advice in terms of focus? Choose reality. As harsh and terrible and wonderful as it is, choose that as your new perspective. Try and find out what reality is, not what you think reality is, or even what you believe reality to be. What is reality regardless of your position, your perspective, your position? I'm sure that Hannah is experiencing a real reality check right now. And let's face it, reality can be a rush. Reality can be exciting. You experience all of that when you travel. But too much reality can become very uncomfortable as well. It can become tiring. It can even become exhausting. And this is why we choose the amount of reality we can bear. So choose wisely. Number 8, we must unlearn what we have learned. Look at this post posted 4 years ago, but edited just a few weeks ago. And one does wonder how much Hannah has actually fiddled with her own social media, knowing that this would kind of be her manifesto of sorts. What has she selectively removed? What has she edited and changed? And look at what she writes. We must unlearn generations of hate to move forward with peace. It is the only way.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
So if that's true, and you must unlearn what you have learned, what do you think that is? What have you learned that you must unlearn? Number 9, healing in nature. And here Hannah writes, let your heart do the talking. How do we reconnect to our true nature without nature, without spending time in nature, without connecting to it? Without connecting to nature, we can't connect to ourselves. And if we can't connect to ourselves, how can we connect to anyone? That's a little like that saying, if you can't love yourself, how can you expect anyone else to love you? And that brings us to number 10, letting go. And look at this post just titled Connection. In the end, we can only reach toward new things by letting go of old things. If we are to connect and be connected beings, connected in an affirmative, authentic sense, we have to disconnect from broken, noisy, dysfunctional things and people. And time alone, if we haven't been alone for a long time already, is how we begin to reset those connections that will allow us to come back to our lives and our place in this world more effectively. If we have been alone for a long time, well, then we need to come out of that place of aloneness. Does that make sense? Now, consider these two individuals, young man, young woman. Both spent time in Hawaii, both disconnected from their families, but they did it in radically different ways. Hannah seemed to find rejuvenation, restoration in nature. Luigi found rationalizing and reinforcement in books, games, and social media. Personally, I prefer Hannah Kobayashi's story with its creativity and subtlety, with its tragic love and natural rhythms, over Luigi Mangioni's vexatious, oversimplistic, black and white, destructive hatred. So what do you think? Will she come out of hiding before Christmas and re-engage with a wounded, worried family? Should she? Should you? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.